morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, Text 28. Iti sambrita sambara Purusha vayaveraham Tameva purusham yagyam Tenaiva yajam ishvaram Iti sambrita sambara Purusavayaveaham Tameva purusham yagyam Tenaiva yajameshwaram Iti sambrita sambara Purusavayaveaham Tameva purusham yagyam Tenaiva yajam ishwaram Iti. Thus, sambrita, executed, sambara, equip myself well, Purusha, the personality of Godhead, Avayavai, by the parts and parcels, Aham, I, Tam Eva, unto him, Purusham, the personality of Godhead, Yagyam, the enjoyer of all sacrifices, Tena Eva, by all those, Ayajam, worshipped, Ishwaram, the supreme controller. Translation. Thus I created the ingredients and paraphernalia for offering sacrifice out of the parts of the body of the Supreme Lord, the enjoyer of the sacrifice, and I performed the sacrifice to satisfy the Lord. Purport. People in general are always anxious to have peace of mind or peace in the world, but they do not know how to achieve such a standard of peace in the world. Such peace in the world is obtainable by performances of sacrifice and by practice of austerity. In the Bhagavad Gita 5.29, the following prescription is recommended: Bhoktaram jagatapa sam savaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam kyatvam mam santim richati. The Karma Yogis know that the Supreme Lord is the factual enjoyer and maintainer of all sacrifices and of the austere life. They also know that the Lord is the ultimate proprietor of all the planets and is the factual friend of living entities, of all living entities. Such knowledge gradually converts the Karma Yogis into pure devotees of the Lord through the association of unalloyed devotees. And thus they are able to be liberated from material bondage. Brahma, the original living being within the material world, taught us the way of sacrifice. The word sacrifice suggests dedication of one's own interest for satisfaction of a second person. That is the way of all activities. Every man is engaged in sacrificing his interest for others, either in the form of family, society, community, country, or the entire human society. But perfection of such sacrifices is attained when they are performed for the sake of the Supreme Person, the Lord. Because the Lord is the proprietor of everything, because the Lord is the friend of all living creatures, and because he is the maintainer of the performer of sacrifice as well as the supplier of the ingredients of sacrifices, it is he only and no one else who should be satisfied by all sacrifices. The whole world is engaged in sacrificing energy for advancement of learning, social upliftment, economic development, and plans for total improvement of the human condition, but no one is interested in sacrificing for the sake of the Lord, as it is advised in the Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, there is no peace in the world. If men at all want peace in the world, they must practice sacrifice in the interest of the supreme proprietor and friend of all. Excuse me. So, continuing on, Purusha Shukta confirmed, and here Lord Brahma is speaking. That's I created the ingredients and paraphernalia. Also in the previous verse, thus I had to arrange all these necessary ingredients and paraphernalia of sacrifice from the personal body parts of the personality of God. Or in other words, all these in the ingredients, the objective, the whole situation is coming about by the arrangement and by the grace of the Supreme Lord. So this understanding is very much stressed by Srila Prabhupada. And in fact, he goes on to say, really, peace in the world, and even peace within oneself. Of course, if the individual is not peaceful, and you have many individuals who are not peaceful, then it's virtually impossible to have a peaceful condition in the world. First of all, we have to start with ourselves. Sometimes people have asked me that, how do we attain peace? I said, well, first of all, you have to start with yourself. If you can have peace within yourself, and everyone has peace within themselves. Now, how to attain peace? Of course, Prabhupada quotes, as he would many times, as Bhoktaram Jagatapasam, Savaloka Maheshwaram Suridam Sababhutaram Gatpamam Santim Richati. You have to understand, again, emphasizing on the position of the Supreme Lord. He talks about, Krishna talks about the karma yogis, those who are acting. And now, in the world, everyone is acting. Karma. Karma means actions and reactions to actions. Now, if one develops the transcendental intelligence to understand that the goal of the perfection of actions is in connection with the Supreme, then that's karma yoga. It's not just karma anymore. Karma means just ordinary actions and reactions. Karma yoga means when those actions are dovetailed with the ultimate enjoy and the ultimate goal of those actions being the Supreme Lord. Now, Prabhupada, he says in many places that one of the big lacking in the world is that people do not have a proper ultimate goal for their endeavors, for their actions. They don't have a proper ultimate goal. Everyone is living in the world. We have our immediate goals and our mid-term goals and our long-term goals. But what is the ultimate goal? In another place, there's a description that this material nature is like a great ocean, and it is being tossed around by the waves of time. I thought it is a very nice analogy. The material world is like a great ocean and is being tossed by the waves of time. There's so many waves in an ocean, so many waves are incessantly coming. So those waves are considered waves of time, and on those waves there's many foaming bubbles. The foaming bubbles can be compared to our own situation, our own body, our own family, our own society, country, and so on. But these things are temporary. Just like foam on a wave, it is there. Waves are continuously moving. So time is continuously moving. There's foam on there, but the foam is very temporary. It appears all of a sudden on the wave, and then it's gone. So in this sense, material world is very illusory, and it's almost like a dream because it's always in flux, always moving. But the problem is that people are very attached to the temporary nature of it, and because of that attachment, have goals in many different ways, according to their desires and according to their attachments. But once a proper ultimate goal is established. Now, here in Bhagavad Gita is also mentioned, very famous verse, Nasti buddhiya yuktasya, nachuktasya bhavana, nachabhavyata, shanti ashantashu kutashukam. One who is not connected with the Supreme in Krishna consciousness can have neither transcendental intelligence nor a steady mind, without which there is no possibility of peace. How can there be any happiness without peace? Very difficult to be happy if you're not peaceful. Now, and very difficult to be peaceful if your mind is always agitated. And the mind is always agitated due to a lack of transcendental intelligence, which comes from the ultimate goal, which comes from the ultimate connection to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So it's very, in this sense, it's very logical that if we can again reconnect, we have an eternal connection to the Lord, but at the moment we're turning our attention to just the illusory energy, which is, as I said, just like foaming bubbles on the waves of time, which come and go very quickly. So we're attached to all that, but it's a very illusory, very temporary, and ultimately unsatisfying. But if we can again rekindle our connection, and our ultimate goal is that, developing our connection with the Supreme Personality of God, then we develop our transcendental intelligence. Very, very interesting points made by Lord Krishna and explained by Srila Prabhupada in this particular verse, Nasti buddhiya yuktasya. That everyone's got intelligence. Even the ants have intelligence, and different insects and the plants. There's intelligence everywhere. But the intelligence is mundane. But when the intelligence goes to the Supreme, then it becomes purified to the point it becomes transcendental intelligence. So because of that connection, we have Krishna, our intelligence becomes transcendental, and then our mind, which is guided by our transcendental intelligence, becomes steady. Steady mind, and the mind is very powerful. We all know. Just like in one day we're feeling very, very good. Our mind is okay, and even by the end of the day, we don't feel. We become mental over something or other. Something affects us, and we're in anxiety, so on and so forth. So the mind very much is going like that, because the mind doesn't have that ultimate goal, doesn't have that transcendental intelligence. So it's looking for things in the material world to satisfy it. And it's always moving from one thing to the other thing, and it's unsteady. So therefore that creates an anxious state. An anxious state. We're always anxious, and that leads, of course, to anxiety. Stress, anxiety and stress. And, people suffer a lot from stress, from anxiety, which leads to distress, so on. So our minds, if we can get our minds, in every field of activity, and the mind is very important. Just like in sport, for example, if one wants to be an athlete, one wants to go to the Olympics, compete in one. Not only you have to be physically qualified, but you have to be mentally prepared. It's very, very important. Mentally prepared. And this is very important in spiritual development. So here it is mentioned, when you get the transcendental intelligence, that steadies the mind. If you have lacking in transcendental intelligence and lacking in the connection to the Supreme Personality, but that will be reflected in the unsteady mind. The reflection will be there, and the result will be unsteady mind. Mind will not be very steady. So if the intelligence is good transcendental intelligence, then the mind is very, very steady. And then when the mind is steady, when the mind is very tranquil, there can be a peaceful situation, just like a pond or something like that. If it's just still, if the water is still, you see it's very peaceful, very, very peaceful. But if it's agitated by the wind or other things, then it's not peaceful. It's not a peaceful situation. So a mind can be like that, very clear, very still, very peaceful, connected to the transcendental intelligence, connected to the Supreme, who is the ultimate goal. So you have to have that ultimate goal. You have to have that anchor. Otherwise you're going to be wandering all over the place, tossed by the waves of time, foaming bubbles that come and go. What we were attached to 5 years ago, 10 years, I talked about this in another class some time ago, that we think about things we used to do in the past, but those times are gone. You can never relive them. The time moves on. You have changed because of your circumstances. Others who you're associating with also have changed. So you can never relive the same experience. It'll always be different. Even you can come together, have a reunion or something like that. It'll never be the same as what it was previously. It'll be somewhat different. Because as I said, the time is moving everything, and everything is in flux. But one thing is steady, the Supreme Personality of God. We are steady actually as spirit souls, but that connection has to be there, because we are small, and the material energy, another energy of Krishna, is very great, and it's acting on us. So steady mind, and when there's steady mind, you can have that peacefulness. Here Prabhupada stresses, he quotes from Bhaktaram Jagatapas, one has to have, now sacrificing for the Supreme Lord. And Prabhupada makes a point also here of, our way of life is sacrificing. Just the way of activities, he said, I think he puts it that way. There's just the way of activities in the world we sacrifice. We sacrifice to achieve many things. We sacrifice for we sacrifice it for ourselves. If we go to school, if we go to uni, we have to study. Can you come over? We're having a party. No, I have to study. You have to sacrifice that, right? You have to sacrifice that because you want to achieve the result. So you're sacrificing for yourself. You're sacrificing for others. Whether it's your immediate family, you're sacrificing at work, sacrificing in sport, sacrificing for your team. You're enduring so everyone's sacrificing. That's just the way of living in the world. Everyone's sacrificing, but the perfection. But all that sacrificing for this, that, and the other thing, it's just moving around, and you sacrifice one time over here, then you sacrifice one time over there, and you're expecting a certain result. Sometimes it comes, sometimes it doesn't come. So it's very very unsure, and therefore that creates an anxious state. Well, I'm sacrificing, doing so much hard work, and the result didn't come. And was it my fault? Was it the other person's fault? Of course, these days in Kali Yuga, people tend to blame everybody else except themselves. The result didn't come, it didn't happen, and it's her fault, or it's his fault, or it's the boss's fault, or it's the country's fault, the government's fault. We don't attach any blame to ourselves. I'm a no blame person. No blame can be ever attached to me. If something went wrong, it's never my fault, it was always the other person. Never wrong. I'm never wrong about anything. There's something, maybe we're like that ourselves. We don't like to admit any fault. But that's due to false ego and illusion, ignorance. You're making mistakes all the time. It's one of the four defects of the conditioned souls. You make mistakes. So we're always making mistakes. So to think that you never make a mistake, or you're blaming everybody else, That's not good. But anyway, this mood of developing the right consciousness, sacrificing for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is providing everything, and Prabhupada actually states here. Why? Because, He is the origin of all. He is providing everything. He is our friend. He is helping us in so many ways. And just by that attitude of gratitude, the attitude of gratitude and sacrificing, offering, just like the karma yogis. Now, they're offering things to the Supreme Lord. Now, I see this a lot in Bali. In Bali, in the mornings, the Hindus there, especially see the ladies, but also the men. The ladies, they go to the temple, pretty much, it's still there. It's still very traditional. You'll see, especially in the regional villages and the regional towns. In the morning, at around early in the morning, 6:30 or 7, you'll see they all go with the ladies. They learn from when they're just young girls how to place things on their heads and stacked up. I don't know how to do it, but see in India also. They stack it up and they've got offerings. Right, they're little baskets. And generally they'll put one basket and then they put another basket on. I've seen some of them with 5 or 6, just talking, And they're talking to their friend. They're walking a few of them together. And, in the basket there's fruits, there's flowers, there's all sorts of things. Sometimes they cook things. And they're taking it as an offering at the temple. And the men usually also they go, and it's still maybe not so much in the cities, but they're still in the cities to a certain extent. But and the men, before they go to work, they'll go and they make an offering to the deity. Now this is what's called karma yoga. The ultimate beneficiary is Krishna. When we do the sacrifice, especially Vaishnavas, we may praise the demigods in the offerings, but ultimately it is Krishna who we're praising. So this is very purifying, and one is uplifted if one. And here Prabhupada says that such action and such knowledge gradually converts the karma yogis into pure devotees of the Lord, especially if they have the association of unalloyed devotees. Now, the people, the karma yogis, they're making their offerings, and of course they're praying to the Lord to provide to them all their necessities. It's not the topmost stage. Someone loves someone, but they love them because they're expecting something back. You wouldn't say that's the topmost level of love. If I come to you, what's your name? Chaitanya. Chaitanya. Your name is Chaitanya? Very good name. So I say, Chaitanya, I like you so much, you're my nice friend, and I praise you, I give you offerings, you want some nice prasadam, and then after a little while, can I take a loan, some money from you? Have you got any money you can loan me? Right? So, you're making an offering, you're becoming the friend, but you want something. So, but then there's another person who just will do something for you and doesn't expect anything. So who is the higher one, you think? They're just doing it out of love and affection. That's real love and affection. But nevertheless, someone who goes and makes an offering, at least they're making an offering, at least they're intelligent, they understand the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They have that much intelligence. So gradually they're getting purified. Gradually, and if they have the association of the unalloyed, the topmost levels of devotee who have that unalloyed love for Krishna, they will become purified, they will be elevated to the topmost levels as well. They'll ultimately be liberated from the material bondage, as Prabhupada says here. Very important. So going back to this, peacefulness, the peace formula, of course, this religious process is very much recommended in all religions. Now, in the name of religion, one is causing trouble to others who are following other religions. That's another thing altogether. That's called false ego. You see. So every religious process, every true religious process has a procedure for being elevated, for making offerings to the Supreme, whether it's food stuff, whether it's just prayer, whatever it is. So therefore, if one just follows that, that's very nice. But if one becomes puffed up out of false ego, actually not very developed in understanding, then one may use that to denigrate others. So that's not very good. But nevertheless, we have this understanding here mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so this sacrifice is done everywhere. We just have to perfect it by adding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and then the peacefulness will automatically come. We don't have to extraneously try for it. Now, as soon as that peacefulness comes, you will feel very contented. You will feel automatically very happy. This is what is mentioned here. How can there be happiness without peace? Someone who's not peaceful, how can they really be happy? One may make a show of being happy. And Prabhupada does mention that here in this purport. He says one may make a show of being peaceful. I'm really peaceful. Or I'm really happy. I'm the most happy. Sometimes I want to show off my happiness. Oh, how happy are you? Oh, that's like, they want to show off. We went to a party last night. It was so good. Oh, well, that was nothing. You missed that. We went to this other thing over here. It was much better than that. I've been to those before. Ours was much better. Right? You've probably experienced that. You've probably done it yourself. You want to show off your happiness. I was more happy than you. So this again, false ego. So these are very neophyte types of individuals, very immature type personalities. So that's another thing, to make a show of happiness. And one can know by the symptoms over time. Generally, a show of anything doesn't last very long. A show of affection, just like I was mentioning, if I, praise you or something like that, give you something, but I want something back, and you don't give it to me, then all of a sudden my affection and my praise turns to anger, and then I criticize you. You think you can, help me out and give me a loan for a while? No, sorry, I can't give it to you. Why not? Why can't you give it to me? We get like that, isn't it? Why can't you give it? And then from praising, you go to attacking. Right? And it can be just like that. It can just change just like that. Oh, you're so good. Yeah, what about a loan? Can you? No, I can't give you a loan. What? Why not? Just like that. You can just switch. Mode of ignorance. This is the mode of ignorance. Just like we see this, often, and you probably may have experienced it previously. Someone, you drink alcohol, you get drunk, and you're all friends. But then the next turn, you're attacking him. The friends fought together in the pub, and they banged each other over the head with the glasses of beer or something. Right? The friends were fighting. The friends fought together. They were friends just 1 minute before, but the next moment, bang, they were fighting. And this is all superficial. I love you, and then next moment, I hate you, I never want to see you again. Right? So all this superficial type thing. So one, and actually the whole world situation is like that. A lot of superficialities, and talk about love, talk about this, talk about being friendly, and that. Of course, there are some people who are more in the mode of goodness, who are more genuine. They're a bit more developed in the mode of goodness. But generally, there's a lot of people in the mode of goodness who make a show of it. But if one follows this procedure of yajna, of course, for ourselves, we follow the Sankirtan yajna, then gradually, Because of that connection with Krishna, the transcendental intelligence becomes stronger, mind becomes more peaceful. But there is a process. One has to follow it continuously. It does take time. One has to have perseverance. One has to have patience. Sometimes there'll be the mind will relapse back. Just like if you're taking a medicine, if you don't take it properly or there's some discrepancy, there may be a relapse. You have to be very careful. If you're sick, you go to the doctor. The doctor gives you a prescription. You have to follow it. If you didn't follow it quite correctly, or it could be a prescription, could be a diet, could be so many things. And if you didn't do any of those things, you may have a relapse back. So generally, when we go back, okay, we're following, we feel very happy in Krishna, but then all of a sudden, our mind gives us trouble. Yes, well, initially the mind will pull back a little bit initially because it's used to something else. But if we just persevere and if we have our determination in that, we've got the ultimate goal, and we practice patience. Because actually the process is very quick. We've had many lives, and in one life we're pulling our mind and the false ego, everything becomes, after many thousands and thousands of lives, we've got this one life. So we have to be patient, yes, by following everything. Everything can be very nice. So then ultimate happiness will come. So here Prabhupada makes Krishna consciousness is a self-manifested peaceful condition which can be achieved only in relation with Krishna. This is a very interesting point. A self-manifested. You don't have to look for it anywhere else. It'll just manifest of its own accord. You don't have to practice other things to get to that thing. It's a self-manifested, very well put, self-manifested, and as he put it again, peaceful. It's a self-manifested peaceful condition. It'll just come if you follow that. So it's a very, very important point. All right, I'll just read this verse again. Iti samvrita sambara purusha vayave aham tam eva purusham yagyam tena eva yajam ishwaram. Thus I created the ingredients and paraphernalia for offering a sacrifice out of the parts of the body of the Supreme Lord, the enjoyer of the sacrifice, and I performed the sacrifice to satisfy the Lord. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? Yes.
So are we guaranteed to arrive at that peaceful condition, Maharaj? It sometimes takes a long time. It seems to take, you can chant and do your service, but you feel that things are not that peaceful.
Well, you have to be introspective yourself. See if you're chanting and you're following everything. If you're maintaining material attachments, that'll be a problem. You're chanting, but then you're engaging in material activities. So that'll be like a tug of war going on there, even in your own self. There may be others who are causing difficulties. They've got their own difficulties, and they may be causing difficulties for you. But just the nature of living in the world, if one just concentrates on their own Krishna consciousness, and just be introspective. What can I do? What am I doing that I can improve on? That is not really perhaps causing my own difficulties, causing my own anxieties. You yourself, you can take advice from others on that. You yourself will just think about that a little bit, because one has to give themselves fully to it to get the topmost result of it. To get the topmost level of that peacefulness, you have to give yourself fully to it. So if you're only giving yourself 10% to it or 20% to it, then that other 80% will have an effect on your own peacefulness. So you have to, just like you may be chanting a lot, but you may be doing other activities. I remember one time a devotee went to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, lately I'm feeling a bit disturbed. And Prabhupada said, are you chanting all your rounds? And he said, yes, Prabhupada. I said, well, chant more then. Chant some more. Yes, you may think, well, I'm chanting 1 hour, 2 hours. Well, just like we were doing the chanting on Lord Balaram's appearance day here, going for hours and hours and hours. Everyone was in ecstasy. Anasuya was leading the bhajans. He led for an hour, and then others took over. Some went through the afternoon. So you can chant more and more and more. Read, and very important, take good association. Have good association. So when you get that good association, that also helps us a lot. Yes.
About unconditional love, like you take the example of giving way and serve someone if you're expecting something in return. So when you come new to the Krishna consciousness, by the power of association, you may, with the follow, be required after a time application to acquire the knowledge of why we need, otherwise it becomes seeking.
Yeah, unconditional love. Yeah, I'm just like the karma yogis here. Theirs is conditional. They're doing the offerings and everything, and they're asking in return something. And but they while they do that, even though it's not the topmost level, still the connection is there, to the Supreme Lord. So still the connection is there. So they're getting purified. And now, if they are fortunate to get the association of very unalloyed devotees, as you said, unalloyed devotees, then their purification will go very, very quickly just by the presence of that particular devotee. So one can get that association even personally or through the instructions. And so you get one or many, or even if they're not unalloyed devotees, but they're very advanced devotees, that will be very helpful also. So it's a question of they've got the blazing fire of Krishna is very much manifest within them, and so when you come in contact with them, you become very purified yourself. So yes, your conditional returns to unconditional because of the association of those who are unconditional. You see that, and just in their presence you become purified. Of course, if you're going to commit some offences, that's another thing. But if you just very sincerely and innocently associate, even if you don't hear anything from them, just your being in their association will be very helpful. If you also hear from them and also assimilate that into your own activities according to your own position, this will be very, very helpful. You will come from the conditional to the unconditional very, very quickly. The process itself will purify you, but then all this association will make it move forward very, very quickly. Very important. Chanting and following everything and association. Very, very. Lord Chaitanya, these two things, he said, these two things are the most important. Yes, Prabhu. Last question.
Does that association, with advanced devotees, with that opportunity to be in the shelter of someone who is pure, does that come when we become sincere in our practice?
Yes. Is that someone whose his question was that how has it all happened with the association of the very advanced or the pure devotees? Yes, there's a combination. It can be there. You have a desire to advance spiritually, and if you're sincere about that, Krishna knows that. So somehow or other, he'll make an arrangement where you'll get that association. And sometimes also, and this is called Causeless Mercy, it's there exhibited in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it's also exhibited in the personalities of these great devotees, that for no reason really It's not that you might not have had any sincerity or anything like that. Now, you may be just someone out and about, but somehow or other, the pure devotee was there, just like, Prabhupada was walking in the airport, he'd be sitting next to someone, he'd just all of a sudden start talking to them. So that's like that person really didn't do anything. Or maybe there might have been something from the previous life. These things are hard to... Krishna knows all these things, the whole history of everything. But it's a combination of your sincerity and the causeless mercy of the pure devotee that you get that opportunity to advance further. And of course, ultimately, Krishna's mercy. And Krishna's mercy is arranging all these things. So Krishna's mercy of the pure devotee, your sincerity, all these things combined propels you forward even more quickly, more rapidly. Prabhupada used the word rapid quite often. Now you have to advance rapidly on the path of devotional service. So all these things propel us forward. So we should... so just by hearing the classes and understanding these things and praying to Krishna, and the sincerity, Krishna knows the sincerity of heart, he'll make all arrangements. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Gopinandi Hari Bol.